The world is obsessed with hacks. We're told that if we just wake up at 4:00 a.m., drink a specific green juice, or download the latest productivity app, our lives will magically transform. Buy this course. Follow this guru. Adopt this morning routine. The promise is always the same: quick results with minimal effort. But if you look around, most people are more stressed, more distracted, and more overwhelmed than ever. They are running a race on a treadmill, moving fast, but going nowhere. They jump from one hack to another, one trend to the next, always searching for that magic bullet that will finally fix everything. They are part of the 99% who are reactive, governed by their emotions and constantly seeking external validation. They wake up checking their phones, spend their days reacting to notifications, and fall asleep scrolling through feeds that make them feel inadequate. They live in a constant state of distraction, never quite present, never quite satisfied. If you want to move into that top 1%, you don't need more hacks. You don't need another productivity system or another motivational speech that fires you up for 3 days before you return to your old patterns. You need something deeper, something that actually works over decades, not just weeks. You need a philosophy that has survived 2,000 years of human chaos. You need the habits of the Stoics. These aren't just ideas or interesting concepts to nod along to. They are weapons for the mind, tools that have been tested by emperors, slaves, soldiers, and philosophers across millennia. And they still work today, perhaps more powerfully than ever in our age of constant distraction and manufactured outrage. The first habit is what the Stoics called objective representation. This is the practice of seeing reality exactly as it is, without the emotional coloring we automatically add to everything. Most people go through life like a leaf in the wind, completely at the mercy of external circumstances. If someone cuts them off in traffic, they're angry for an hour, their entire mood hijacked by a stranger who doesn't even know they exist. If a boss gives them negative feedback, their whole weekend is ruined. They replay the conversation endlessly, imagining what they should have said, building elaborate stories about what it means about their worth. They let external events dictate their internal state. Their happiness is always conditional, always dependent on things going right. And because life is unpredictable and often unfair, they spend most of their time upset, anxious, or frustrated. To be in the 1%, you must break this cycle completely. You have to learn to see things exactly as they are, stripped of the stories you tell yourself. This requires brutal honesty and constant practice. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, used to practice this by describing high-status items in the most basic terms. He would look at expensive robes worn by senators and tell himself it was just wool dyed with the blood of a shellfish. He would see elaborate feasts and remind himself it was just dead animals and plants arranged on a table. He would observe people scrambling for power and recognition and see it as temporary sound and fury, signifying nothing permanent. This wasn't pessimism or cynicism. It was clarity. He was stripping away the emotional drama and social programming to see what was actually there. And that clarity gave him an unshakable foundation that no external circumstance could disturb. You must do the same with your problems, your fears, your sources of anger and anxiety. When someone insults you, they aren't attacking your dignity or destroying your worth. They are simply making sounds with their mouth, vibrations in air that you're choosing to interpret as meaningful. When you lose money, you haven't failed as a person. You have simply returned currency to the world, pieces of paper or digital numbers changing location. By stripping away the emotional drama, you remain calm while everyone else is panicking. That calm is your competitive advantage. While the 99% are clouded by rage or fear, while they're making impulsive decisions based on hurt feelings or wounded pride, you are seeing the path forward with total clarity. You see the problem as it actually is, not as your emotions want to paint it. You see opportunities where others see only disasters. You maintain your ability to think strategically while everyone around you is reacting emotionally. This single habit, practiced consistently, will put you ahead of almost everyone you encounter. The second habit is the awareness of the clock. The Stoics called this memento mori, remember that you will die. To most people, thinking about the end of their time is uncomfortable, morbid, something to be avoided at all costs. They spend their entire lives trying to ignore the one certainty of human existence. They fill every moment with distraction, never sitting with the reality that their time here is limited and unpredictable. But for the Stoic, the fact that our time is finite is the ultimate clarifier. It's not depressing, it's liberating. It's the lens that brings everything else into sharp focus. When you live with the constant awareness that your time is a limited resource, that this day might be your last, that you are not guaranteed another conversation with the people you love, everything changes. You stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You stop doom scrolling through social media for hours. You stop arguing with people you don't even like about topics that won't matter next week. You stop putting off the things that actually matter because you think you'll always have time later. The 99% live as if they have 500 years left. They procrastinate on their greatness because they think they'll always have tomorrow. They'll start that business next year. They'll repair that relationship eventually. They'll pursue that dream when the timing is perfect. They treat their time as if it's infinite, and so they waste it on infinite trivial things. But the 1% understands that tomorrow is a privilege, not a right. Every single day is borrowed time. Every conversation might be the last one. Every moment is unrepeatable and precious beyond measure. When you realize your presence here has an expiration date, it doesn't make you sad or depressed. It makes you dangerous. It gives you a sense of urgency that no motivational video ever could. It forces you to focus on the essential and eliminate everything else. Every decision you make is filtered through the lens of, if this were my final act, would I be proud of it? If I died tonight, would I regret spending this afternoon the way I'm about to spend it? This habit removes the fluff from your life and leaves only the steel. Only what truly matters survives this filter. You stop caring about impressing people who don't matter. You stop holding grudges because you realize life is too short to carry that poison. You stop postponing joy and connection because you understand that later might never come. You become intensely focused on what's actually important, and everything else falls away. The third habit is the practice of voluntary hardship. This might be the most counterintuitive of all the Stoic practices, but it's also one of the most powerful. We live in the most comfortable era in human history. We have heating and air conditioning, unlimited entertainment, food delivered to our door, and technology that would have seemed like magic to our ancestors. But comfort is a drug, and the 99% are addicted to it. When you are addicted to comfort, you become fragile. Your happiness becomes dependent on everything going smoothly. If the Wi-Fi goes out, your day is ruined. If the coffee is cold, you're irritated for an hour. If your routine is disrupted, you fall apart. You become a slave to your circumstances, unable to function unless everything is perfect. The Stoic knows that the only way to be truly free is to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. To know, deep in your bones, that you can handle difficulty. That you don't need perfect conditions to be okay. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, used to set aside days to live on the scantiest food and wear coarse clothing just to prove to himself that his happiness didn't depend on his bank account. He would fast, sleep on the floor, and deliberately experience the life of a poor man, not to punish himself, but to remove fear. Because once you know you can survive and even thrive with very little, luxury becomes a choice rather than a necessity. You enjoy comfort when you have it, but you're not destroyed when you don't. You're free. By intentionally seeking out discomfort, whether that's cold showers, fasting, intense physical training, or choosing the harder path when an easier one is available, You break the chains of luxury. You build what the Stoics called resilience and what we might call antifragility. When you realize that you can survive and even thrive with very little, you become invincible. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because you know you can handle whatever comes. While the 99% are running away from pain, avoiding any difficulty, staying in their comfort zones, you are walking through it, building a level of mental toughness that makes you unstoppable. You train yourself in good times so that when hard times come, and they always do, you're ready. You've already been uncomfortable voluntarily, so involuntary discomfort doesn't break you. You've already practiced being cold, hungry, tired, challenged. So when life throws those things at you, you handle them with ease while everyone else crumbles. The fourth habit is the radical ownership of the internal citadel. This is the core of Stoicism, the principle that everything else is built on, the dichotomy of control. Most people spend 90% of their energy worrying about things they cannot change. They worry about the economy, the weather, and the opinions of strangers. They stress about politics, complain about traffic, and lose sleep over things that are completely outside their influence. This is a massive drain on their mental resources. They're constantly frustrated because they're trying to control the uncontrollable. They're angry because reality isn't matching their preferences. They're anxious because they're focused on outcomes they have no power over. The 1% does the opposite. They ruthlessly audit their focus. They ask constantly, "Is this within my control?" And if the answer is no, they immediately stop investing energy in it. They realize that they only control two things: their own thoughts and their own actions, how they interpret events and how they respond to them. That's it. Everything else is indifferent in Stoic language. Not unimportant, but outside their direct control and therefore not worth stress or worry. Everything else other people's actions, other people's opinions, outcomes, results, consequences, the past, the future, the weather, the economy, politics, health, death. All of it is outside your control. You can influence some of these things through your actions, but you cannot control them. Imagine the power of a person who literally does not care about things outside their influence. Not in a cold, uncaring way, but in a focused, liberated way. If the market crashes, they don't cry or panic. They ask, "What is the most virtuous action I can take right now? What can I control in this situation?" If someone criticizes them unfairly, they don't spiral into self-doubt or rage. They ask, "Is there truth in this criticism I can learn from? If so, I'll improve. If not, why would I let false words disturb my peace?" This habit turns you into a fortress, an internal citadel that cannot be breached by external circumstances. You become the pilot of your life while everyone else is just a passenger on a ship they don't control, being tossed about by waves of circumstance. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and become the author of your responses. And in that authorship lies all your power. The fifth and final habit is the evening review. This is the practice that ties all the others together and ensures they actually stick. The 99% end their day by numbing themselves with screens and distractions. They watch Netflix until they fall asleep, scroll through social media one last time, or play video games to wind down. They learn nothing from their mistakes, they don't reflect on their day, and so they repeat the same patterns tomorrow. They're on autopilot, never examining whether the life they're living is the life they actually want. A Stoic ends their day with a trial. They sit down in quiet and play back the day like a movie. They become both the prosecutor and the defendant in their own court. They ask themselves tough questions. Where did I lose my temper today? Where was I greedy or fearful? Where did I act from ego rather than principle? Where did I waste time on things that don't matter? Where was I unkind? Where did I fail to live up to my own standards? But they also ask, where did I show virtue? Where was I patient when it was difficult? Where did I do the right thing even when it was hard? What can I do better tomorrow? This isn't about guilt or self-flagellation. It's about data. It's about constant incremental improvement. If you improve by just 1% every day because you're actually paying attention to your life, because you're learning from your mistakes instead of repeating them unconsciously, you will be unrecognizable in a year. You're identifying the glitches in your character and fixing them in real time. You're not waiting for a crisis to reveal your weaknesses. You're hunting them down daily and correcting course before they become major problems. Marcus Aurelius did this every single night. The most powerful man in the world still took time to examine his conscience, to acknowledge his failures, and to commit to doing better. If he needed this practice, how much more do we need it? Integrating these 5 habits isn't easy. If it were, the world would be full of sages instead of people controlled by their impulses, slaves to their emotions, victims of their circumstances. It requires a brutal level of honesty, a willingness to stop pointing fingers at your boss, your past, your parents, the economy, the government, or bad luck, and to finally accept that you are the architect of your own character, that your life is shaped primarily by how you respond to what happens, not by what happens. It's about taking total uncompromising responsibility for the only thing that actually belongs to you, your mind. Your thoughts, your interpretations, your responses, your character. Everything else can be taken from you, but your mind remains yours until your final breath. But if you commit to this path, if you choose to see the world without the filter of your ego, to treat your time like the disappearing asset it is, to embrace the friction of discomfort, to ruthlessly audit your focus, and to review your day every evening, you won't just be getting ahead of the competition. You will be playing a different game entirely on a field they can't even see. You'll develop a stillness that others mistake for luck, and a level of mental clarity that functions like a superpower in moments of crisis. While the 99% are stuck in a waiting room hoping for the world to change so they can finally feel at peace, the 1% understands the secret. You change yourself first, and then the world loses its power to touch you. You become the master of your own internal kingdom. And once you have that, once you've built that internal fortress that no external circumstance can breach, you've already won. Not in the sense of beating other people, but in the only sense that actually matters. You've won yourself.